Welcome into the Solo Shot Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Dom Manna. Happy Solo Shot Saturday, everybody. Got a great response from everybody for the NL prediction show. And of course, as I plan to do the American League show in its counterpart today, there are so many things National League related to talk about that aren't even the fact that the National League kicked off the season over in South Korea with the Seoul Series. They split two very good games, in my opinion, one high scoring, one that was back and forth. And I'm not going to touch too much on the news so far out of the National League. Blake Snell did sign with the San Francisco Giants. So if you go back and listen to my free agency predictions, I did very poorly, but I did call that one. It's a very good fit for Blake Snell, and I think it makes the Giants a lot closer to the Padres than when I recorded last week's episode. So if the Giants end up beating out the Padres for that third wild card in the National League, I will not be shocked now because that pitching staff is bolstered with Blake Snell. And obviously the Shohei Ohtani situation, I'm going to hold off. They're just announced that the investigation is starting. So there is going to be a ton of updates that I'm sure we will get more of throughout the season. From everything I read, do not think Shohei Ohtani is going to have any sort of Pete Rose situation, but we cannot say anything until we get more information at this time. We got to start the same way we did in the National League with the American League East. Now, I don't know if this is just me being a Boston Red Sox fan, but I do think top to bottom, this is the most competitive division in baseball. And right at the bottom, they've been there the last 2 years. I have a feeling they're going to defend their crown in last place again. My Boston Red Sox finished 78-84 last season. I do think that they can play slightly above 500 ball with this roster. Their key additions were Tyler O'Neill, Vaughn Grissom, and CJ Cron, as well as pitching coach Andrew Bailey, who I just talked about the Giants, made that pitching staff, got a few pitchers paid, and should be able to help progress some of this young pitching in the Red Sox rotation. The storyline, though, for the Red Sox is what direction are they going? Because right now their payroll is still over $200 million. They are paying for some really solid relievers, and they didn't want to add Jordan Montgomery, add Blake Snell, go and sign Yoshinobu Yamamoto for the record deal that he got. But is this team completely rebuilding? Is this team actually still trying to compete while they rebuild like the Celtics did of old? I really don't know what direction they're going in. And I think this season, being documented on Netflix, being the 20th anniversary of the 2004 World Series team, we're going to get some definitive answers in Craig Breslow's first year about what they think of this team moving forward. The players to watch: Brian Bayo has been announced as the opening day starter. As a rookie last year, 4.24 ERA in 157 innings pitched, good enough for a 107 ERA plus. 132 Ks, that was a 7.6 strikeout per 9 and a 4.54 FIP. The Red Sox defense was awful last season. I do think that they have made some efforts to improve that, but it doesn't mean that the FIP's going to be better than the ERA for Brian Bayo this year. I do think Brian Bayo has all the potential to be a frontline starter. I'm not saying he's going to start on opening day for the Red Sox for the next 6 years, but he has the opportunity to do so. He has that kind of stuff, and I do think he's going to take a step forward this year in his second full major league season with Andrew Bailey's tutelage and a lot of great pitchers in the room. Rafael Devers is the face of the Boston Red Sox. Last year was considered a down year for Rafi, where he had a slash line of 271, 351, and a 500 slug, 33 home runs, and 100 RBIs. He's one of the best pure hitters in baseball, and he's going to be a reason to tune into the Red Sox every single day, no matter where they are in the standings. But the X factor for the Red Sox this year is Tristan Casas, because it was a tale of two halves. He was struggling both offensively and defensively at the beginning of the year. He was one of the worst hitters in baseball. And towards the end, he ended up making a respectable line. He finished the season with a 263 batting average, 367 on base, 490 slugging, 24 home runs, and a 129 OPS plus, which led the team. He has true elite hitter potential. And I do think if he can have that official breakout this year with 30 plus home runs, with a batting average closer to 280 than 250, he's going to be looked at as one of the best first basemen in baseball and one of the best hitters in the American League. So I do think there's going to be big things for Tristan Casas, and I hope that the Red Sox extend him before that happens. In fourth place, I have the team that finished third last year. The Toronto Blue Jays went 89 and 73 last year, and key additions this offseason were Justin Turner and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. I love JT, but that's not an exciting offseason. The storylines is, have we seen this team ceiling? And the real question is, will they keep Bo or Vladdy moving forward? I don't know if we know the answer to either of those questions yet. I do think this season will tell us at least one of those questions, if not both. This team, they can be a high 80s, low 90s win club while healthy. They have a good lineup. They have a solid pitching staff. They have a good bullpen. But going into this season, Kevin Gausman is banged up. Alek Manoah, who was an all-star 2 years ago and supposed to get Cy Young votes last year, is up between the minor leagues and major leagues. And the back of their bullpen right now, with Eric Swanson and Romano, are both hurt to start the year. That's not going to be a good recipe for them. They are a very right-handed hitting lineup, and I do think that teams are starting to kind of figure out how to pitch against them for the most part. The players to watch for me for the Blue Jays this season, Jose Barrios. This is a guy who got a 7-year, $131 million contract and hasn't lived up to it yet. Last year, pitched to a 3.65 ERA, a 1.16 ERA plus in 189 innings, 186 strikeouts, 8.7 strikeout per nine, with a 3.99 FIP. So solid, dependable, but not top of the rotation dominance that you were hoping when you signed him to that mega deal. So Jose Barrios, Gausman is going to be hurt to start the year. You have to step up in a big way. We know what Chris Bassett is. We know what the back end of your rotation looks like, but Jose Barrios is the guy that needs to step up in that rotation. Vladimir Guerrero, he's still chasing that high of that season where he led the league in home runs. Last year, 264 batting average, 334 on base, 444 slug, 26 home runs, and 94 RBIs. He's immensely talented. He can do 3,000 in his sleep. But will he get back to that true game breaker upside that I think the Blue Jays are still holding out hope for? Or will they kind of start leaning towards, we know what Bo Bichette is. Bo Bichette is a consistent 180 to 200 hit guy, 20 home run guy, 300 batting average, versus Vladimir Guerrero, who the fans love. He has a ton of talent, but hasn't got the same consistency and ceiling that we thought he had a few years ago. But the X factor to me is Davis Schneider, because in only a 35-game sample size, I feel like this flew really under the radar. He had a batting average of 276, an on base of 404, and a slugging percentage of 603, 8 home runs and 20 RBIs, good for a 175 OPS plus. This is a very small sample size. But the Blue Jays let Whit Merrifield leave during the offseason. Davis Schneider has spent some time in the corner outfield as well. If he has the Whit Merrifield role to himself in 2024, we're going to get a long look at what kind of player he really is. And if he is 75% of what he showed last year, that's a way for the Blue Jays to kind of reach a new ceiling potentially. If Jose Barrios can pitch like his contract, if Davis Schneider can hit for a full season like he did in that small sample size last year. So I got the Blue Jays in third place right now, but this division is so good. Outside of the Red Sox, I think that any of the other 4 teams could win the division if everything clicks right. The Yankees, I got finishing third place right now. 82 and 80 last season. Their additions were Juan Soto, Marcus Stroman, Alex Verdugo, and Trent Grisham. The storyline is just wait till Cole gets back. And as a Red Sox fan, I understand that mindset with Chris Sale having multiple injuries and the whole mindset for the season being like, well, just wait till we get Chris Sale back. It's going to be dominance. I don't know if Garrett Cole based on the updates, is going to come back and be a monster the rest of the season. I don't know if he's going to be out the entire season. We have to wait and see. I hope for baseball that he gets to pitch the majority of the season because he's one of the best pitchers in the game, a future Hall of Famer, in my opinion. But we have to just wait and see till Cole gets back to know what this Yankees team's true ceiling really is. Players to watch: Giancarlo Stanton batted 191 last year, 275 on base, 420 slug. He can always slug. 24 home runs in 101 games, struck out 124 times. They added Alex Verdugo, Trent Grisham, and Juan Soto to the outfield with Aaron Judge. If Giancarlo Stanton cannot hit over the Mendoza line and loses any power with him slimming down this offseason, he has a very solid chance of getting platooned or benched from the regular everyday lineup. So he is someone to watch this season. I think that he's one of the greatest power hitters of the last decade. I think that him being slimmed down should help him stay on the field, but it was a disaster season for Giancarlo Stanton last year, and the Yankees fans are calling for his head, so he has to perform. Anthony Volpe is the X factor for the team this season, in my opinion. Last year, they let him play. They let the kid play. 209 batting average, 283 on base, 383 slugging. But he did go 20-20, which I don't think got talked about a lot. I know a lot of players did that, but 21 home runs and 24 stolen bases for the rookie Anthony Volpe last season. If he can bat somewhere in the 250 to 300 range, like he was getting poised to do, and can get that on-base percentage in the 300s, can get that slugging percentage in the 400s, we're talking about the hype that was there when he came up last season. And I think he has the potential to do so. They're going to give him the everyday opportunity to do so. And I really like the kid's attitude and approach to the game. But Juan Soto is going to melt faces this year in his contract year, 1 year stint with the Yankees. Last year, 275 batting average, 410 on base, 519 slug, 35 home runs, 109 RBIs. And now he goes from hitting in San Diego to hitting in the bandbox in the Bronx. What do you think's going to happen if he's healthy all season? He's going to outright dominate. I got the Rays, though, finishing in second place and making the playoffs. That was my biggest miss last year on my AL predictions, was the Rays missing the playoffs. And they ended up winning 99 games in 2023. Their key additions this offseason: Ryan Pepio, Phil Matone, and Ahmed Rosario. Their storyline is, will they be counted out again because of their starting pitcher injuries? They traded away Tyler Glasnow. Drew Rasmussen, Jeffrey Springs, and Shane McClanahan are all recovering from injuries. Taj Bradley starting the season banged up. But I'm not doubting the Rays again until they give me multiple years of reason to doubt them. They are a well-oiled machine. They know how to put their players in the best situation. They have that secret sauce like the Dodgers do. Players to watch: Zach Eflin. I talked about him last year. He was the biggest free agent contract in Tampa Bay Rays history, and he pitched really well last year. 3.5 ERA, 119 ERA plus, and 172 and a 2/3. 186 Ks, good for a 9.4 strikeout per nine, and a 3.01 FIP. He is a solid front end starter. And a lot of people are overlooking Aaron Savale, I believe, in that rotation in a limited sample size. With Cleveland last season, 13 games, he had a 178 ERA plus. He was very good, and I know the Rays giving up a prospect like Kyle Manzardo, who was highly touted, for Aaron Savale, they're going to unlock him. And while he's on the field this year, Savale is going to pitch very well as well. Those two at the top, I think, will be able to carry them enough to the second place finish in this division. But the guys to watch: Randy Arozarena had kind of a meh year last year as the face of the team. 254 batting average, 364 on base, 425 slugging. He did go 20-20, 23 home runs, 22 stolen bases. And there's been a lot of talk about him, Jose Siri, Josh Lowe, the outfielders for the Tampa Bay Rays specifically, running a lot more in 2024 now that they've had a full year of the new rules and the new bases. they're going to be more aggressive on the base pads. And I think that's going to keep the floor for this Rays team very high. So Randy Arozarena, I think, has a really solid shot at 30-30 this year. And I think he's going to continue being the most exciting, recognizable name on this Tampa Bay Rays squad. But the X factors are Caballero and Caminero. I think those are two players that can provide a spark. This team had the shadow of Juan Soto for the second half of the season last year and then just flopped completely in the playoffs. With Caballero, who they got in the trade from Seattle, he can play multiple positions defensively, has some speed. And Junior Caminero is one of the top prospects in baseball. He is compared to Rafael Devers as a hitter. This is a guy who can come up very soon. I believe he's going to be a April or May call-up and provide a spark for this Rays lineup. Brandon Lowe, if he can stay healthy, Caminero and Lowe up the middle. That's a lot of pop in the middle infield. So it's going to be exciting to watch this Rays team going forward. I think they have a ton of talented guys. They know how to platoon. They know to not keep their pitchers out there too long and play the matchups, and they are an analytical machine. So I am not doubting them as I did last year in this exciting division. And the Orioles, I'm keeping them in first place. I had a feeling that would be a little hot takey for me to put the Rays over them after what happened last year. But the Orioles, the two key additions were Corbin Burnes and Craig Kimbrell. Now, they're not quite additions necessarily because Kyle Bradish is going to miss a good chunk of the year in their rotation. So they upgraded their ace, and Felix Bautista is going to miss all of 2024. Their all-star closer. So they downgraded in the closer role. But when you bring in two proven studs like Corbin Burnes and Craig Kimbrell, I'm not going to say that's a bad thing for your team. The storylines, now that Jackson Holliday has been announced that he's been assigned to AAA, is when is he going to get called up? That's going to be something that's talked about every time the Orioles are talked about. And can this team repeat and move forward, take that next step? They won 101 games last year, and I think that a lot of people think that they have the potential to be a dynasty. Will they take those next steps in order to be one? The key players clearly, and the X factor to me is Corbin Burnes. I told you Kyle Bradish is hurt. He's come over. It's a contract year for Corbin Burnes. Last year was considered a down year and a fringe all-star nod. 3.39 ERA, 1.27 ERA plus in 193 and 2/3 innings. He got 200 Ks, 9.3 strikeout per nine, and a 381 FIP. He's a really solid guy that you want at the top of your rotation. He's a top 5 pitcher in baseball, and if he stays healthy, it's going to be huge for the Orioles this season. And the two hitters, with Holliday being down, Rutschman and Henderson. Rutschman last year, 277 batting average, 374 on base, 435 slug, 20 home runs, 128 OPS plus for the catcher position. They haven't been swept in the regular season in the Adley Rutschman era. He raises the floor of that lineup and of that team considerably. Gunnar Henderson, coming off the Rookie of the Year finish, he only batted 255 last year, but a 325 on base and a 489 slugging, 28 home runs, 125 OPS plus. He has the potential, whether he's playing shortstop, whether he's playing third base, to be a cornerstone asset to this Orioles team. And I'm excited to see if he can build upon what he did in year one. Now, from the best division in the American League to the worst, the AL Central. And I'm telling you, this is why when baseball expands, I think the Central division will get absorbed. They aren't competitive. They aren't getting crazy eyes on them. They aren't spending crazy money. And the White Sox are a great example of that. They didn't finish in last place in this division last year, but they've done everything they could this offseason to make sure they do so. Their additions this offseason, Drew Thorpe, Eric Fetty, and Chris Flexen to fill out their rotation, John Brebbia in the bullpen, Paul DeYoung, Mike Moustakas, and Martin Maldonado for some veteran leadership in their lineup. And to me, their storyline this year is, can Luis Robert do it again? Can he build upon what he did in 2023 and be the clear face of the franchise? Or is he also going to be dealt and they just go scorched earth in Chicago? The players to watch with the White Sox, It's not going to be a lot of fun, but there's 3 players that were highly touted prospects that whether they end up being parts of the White Sox core or end up being traded this season are going to be players to watch. Yoan Moncada in a contract year, he had a 97 OPS plus, so just below league average last year, 260 batting average, 305 on base, 425 slug. If he can show some of his potential, he'll be a nice trade chip for a team at the break. Eloy Jimenez, another guy, 104 OPS plus last year, 272 batting average, 317 on base, 441 slug. Solid bat. Can't really play the field, but is a guy that I think would garner some interest if the White Sox don't see him in their future plans. And Luis Robert, the reason to tune into White Sox baseball this year. He is the X factor. He is everything. 264 batting average, 315 on base, 542 slugging percentage, 38 home runs, and 20 stolen bases last season. I didn't think he could stay healthy enough to do this, and I hope that he can this season and repeat it because he has all the potential in the world and has shown it more just in last season than the majority of that White Sox core that they have demolished now has done. The Royals, I know a lot of people are having them as a hot pick to win the division because of their improvements, but you got to remember they were 56 and 106 last year. So I do think they're going to be better than the White Sox. I don't think they're going to have 100 losses, but they're still a couple years away from really moving up in the division, in my opinion. Their additions this offseason, Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha in the rotation, Chris Stratton in the bullpen and with Will Smith, and Hunter Renfroe and Adam Frazier to help that lineup a little bit with some veteran leadership, speed, power, etc. The storyline is which young players will begin to step up around Bobby Witt Jr. Bobby Witt Jr. has asserted himself with his contract and with his performance as one of the best young players in the game. So which of these young players is going to step up around him? The 3 guys that I'm really looking at are Maikel Garcia, 272 batting average, 323 on base, and 358 slugging with 23 stolen bases last year, the third baseman. Vinny Pasquantino in a 61-game sample size last year, coming back from injury, 247 batting average, 324 on base, and 437 slug, good for a 108 OPS plus. And their trade acquisition last season, Nelson Velasquez, in a 40-game sample size, he only hit 233, 299 on base, but a 579 slugging percentage, good for a 134 OPS plus. He has Jorge Soler-like potential with that big year in Kansas City. We've seen Salvador Perez have a huge home run total and some other guys in the past. I think Nelson Velasquez could step up as that power bat in the cleanup role in this Royals offense this season. But there's 2 superstars to watch on this Royals team. And the first is Cole Ragans. In a 71 2/3 innings last season when he was traded to the Royals, he had a 2.64 ERA. That was good for a 1.68 ERA plus. 89 Ks, 11.2 strikeout per 9, and a 2.49 FIP. The movement and the speed that he has coming from the left side, if he stays healthy this year, he is going to prove all the analytics and nerds right this season and get Cy Young votes. He is a cheat code. He is a robot out there on the mound. A lot of people compared him as a left-handed Jacob deGrom. So hopefully he can stay healthy. Hopefully he can repeat what he did, but he has true superstar potential this season. And Bobby Witt, last year, 276 batting average, 319 on base, 495 slug. Just a calm and cool on a 106 win loss team. 30 home runs, 96 RBIs, and 49 stolen bases. He has the potential to be 40-40. He has potential to potentially be 50-50 if the video game numbers just click right. But I think 40-40 is really in his range of outcomes. And I know that 96 RBIs as a guy on a 106 loss team, he's going to be a 3,000 guy at the shortstop position with stolen base upside. So I absolutely love watching him play. He's one of my favorite young players, and he's the main reason to watch Royals baseball this season. The Tigers are a very popular pick to win the Central this year. I have them going from second place to third place, though, just because I don't believe in their pitching as much as the other two teams. Their key additions this offseason, they tried to right that pitching ship. They added Kenta Maeda and Jack Flaherty, Andrew Chafin to the bullpen as well. But is this the year the young talent all comes together? That Javi Baez contract is weighing them down. They have a lot of young players with a lot of potential, and I'm just not quite sure. Another very popular sneaky Cy Young pick is Tariq Skubal, who last year in 80 innings pitched had a 2.8 ERA, 158 ERA plus, 102 Ks, which was 11.4 strikeout per nine with a 2.00 FIP. If he can do that all season, he'll have Cy Young votes. But Tariq Skubal, the injuries have really racked up for him. And I just don't know if this is going to be the year he puts it all together. And even if he does, what will you get out of the other four spots in that rotation? I don't know. We've seen good Jack Flaherty. We've seen bad Jack Flaherty. We've seen good Kenta Maeda. We've seen old Kenta Maeda. It'll be interesting. Spencer Torkelson broke out in a lot of people's eyes last year. 233 batting average, 313 on base, 446 slug. The former number 1 overall pick had 31 home runs and 94 RBIs. I think that's about what he is. I think he's going to be around 250 for the batting average tops. I think he's going to be a 30 home run, 100 RBI type of middle of the bat lineup. That's amazing. That doesn't grow on trees. But the X factor to me is Riley Green, because in only 99 games last season, he had a 288 batting average, 349 on base, and a 447 slugging percentage with 11 home runs. This is a guy with immense potential in center field. This is a guy who is a highly touted prospect in the Tigers organization. And I think if you get a full season out of Riley Green, that could be why some people are picking them to win the division, because he truly has game-changing potential. I have the Guardians finishing in second place, even though I don't think they want to finish in second place. I think they want to be bad. Their pitching staff is just too good as of right now for me to put them any lower. Their key additions this offseason were Estevan Florial, Carlos Carrasco, Cookie Carrasco coming home, and Austin Hedges to help command that pitching staff. The storyline to me is in Vogt we trust. I just believe in Stephen Vogt so much as a manager. I think he's going to do a fantastic job with this team. This is a team that was 76 and 86 last year, despite so many injuries, so many players performing below their expectations. They're going to be fine this year. And I'm not saying that they're going to win 90 games, but they're going to be slightly above 500. I think they're going to be like an 83 to 86 win team. And you look at this roster, Shane Bieber's in a contract year, and I know everybody's saying that he's not what he once was. He isn't. But last year, 3.8 ERA, 110 ERA plus in 128 innings pitched, 7.5 strikeout per nine, 387 FIP. That's a solid pitcher that is going to be motivated, is healthy coming into the year, hopefully, and will be exciting to watch. But the X factor to me is Tanner Bibby and Gavin Williams. These are two mega pitching prospects. Both of them have great frames and great stuff. Bibby had an amazing season last year. Gavin Williams had a nice, impressive stretch as well. Those two guys, I know Gavin Williams is starting the season on the IL, but it shouldn't be a major time missed. But those two guys, I think, are going to be the future of that rotation. And when you have Shane Bieber motivating the contract here, you have two young stud pitchers that have top of the rotation stuff. You have Carlos Carrasco and Tristan McKenzie, all these guys to eat innings behind them. Logan Allen. I think that this team is going to be just fine. They're not going to scare anybody, but they're going to consistently give teams problems. And a lot of that's going to be Jose Ramirez, who I picked to win the MVP last year, and he went and had his worst year in quite some time. 282 batting average, 356 on base percentage, and a 475 slug. Oh, that's horrible. 24 home runs and 28 stolen bases. What's wrong with him? He's going to be fine. I think that Andres Jimenez, Steven Kwan, Estevan Florial, the guys in this lineup are going to be slightly better than they were last year, which means more runners on base, which means more opportunities for home runs, RBIs, doubles, etc. for Jose Ramirez. He's going to be just fine and is the face of the franchise. So I have the Guardians in second place. I know a lot of people aren't excited about them, but this division is not exciting. And while the Tigers and Royals have some sexier names, they don't have the floor that the Guardians have. And to me, it's pretty easy to see that the Twins should be favored to win the division again. Not just because they had 87 wins last year, 87 and 75, but they're just really well-rounded. Not just their pitching staff. I know they lost Sonny Gray, who got Cy Young votes last season, but Pablo Lopez last year, 3.66 ERA, 117 ERA plus, 194 innings pitched, 234 Ks, which was a 10.9 strikeout per nine, 333 FIP. If he gets that ERA down, he could get Cy Young votes as well. Bailey Ober is Mr. Consistent with the games. Joe Ryan has crazy strikeout stuff. Louis Varland, I think, is going to impress some people this year as a back-end starter. And then you look at their lineup, and their lineup is kind of deep. But the name that sticks out, the name that everyone wants to watch, the guy who is pushing to be the face of this franchise is Royce Lewis. Last year in 58 games, he had a 309 batting average, 372 on base, and 548 slugging percentage, 15 home runs, 150 OPS plus. He hit multiple grand slams and was the spark plug to get the Twins to that 87 win total and a playoff series win. But the lineup just is kind of deep all around. I like guys like Willie Castro, Alex Kirilloff, Max Kepler is healthy and should bounce back this season. Byron Buxton's going to DH to start the year to keep his legs fresh. Ryan Jeffers is one of the better power catchers in the game. Like, they have a lot of guys who are exciting to watch. Carlos Correa is getting paid a lot of money. Brooks Lee is a top prospect in the middle infield that should be coming up. So they have a lot of guys to watch, a lot of guys that I think are going to hit fine. And out of all the lineups in the AL Central last year, they were far and away the team with the most league average or better hitters. And that is important. You need to have good hitting in a division that's not scary like this, where only two teams have solid pitching all the way through. You want better than league average hitting so you can take advantage of those matchups. And I think the Twins are going to do just that. Now, the AL West, to me, was the toughest to talk about. It's pretty easy at the bottom. I think the bottom stays the same. I think that the Oakland A's are going to be in contention for worst team in baseball, right up there with the Rockies and the White Sox and the Nationals. But the Oakland A's have a few players that you should keep an eye on. And I know Brent Rooker had a really nice season last year, but the two guys that I want you to keep an eye on for the Oakland A's in the rotation is Joe Boyle. This is a guy who has really high-end velocity and has struggled with control in the minor leagues. He's getting an opportunity to pitch this year, and if he can locate his pitches, he's going to stick out like a sore thumb in that rotation. And Zach Geloff, the second baseman, was really good down the stretch for them last year. I know Brent Rooker and Asturio Ruiz were really exciting, but Zach Geloff has the potential, I think, to be the best overall player on this A's lineup. They made a few small additions, but nothing that I really want to spend some time on here as we continue to have these longer episodes. The Los Angeles Angels, they lost Shohei Ohtani. They lost a lot of other pieces as well. They didn't get Blake Snell. It's going to be a rough season for Ron Washington and the boys in Southern California. I love Mike Trout. If he's healthy, is going to put up a Mike Trout level season, 30-plus home runs, and all the stuff you want to see. But the rest of the Angels lineup, there's a few guys that are young and that are exciting to watch. Mickey Moniak, who had a resurgence with the Angels last season. Zach Neto, who is finally healthy, and Nolan Shanwell, who was called up very soon after being drafted in the 2023 Major League Players Draft and has very good plate discipline for a first baseman. Not a lot of power, but a guy who I think can be a really solid major leaguer. So those three guys, keep an eye on them. Hopefully that they can be bright spots around Mike Trout this season for the Angels. They finished 73 and 89 last year. I think that they're going to be a little bit worse than that. Granted, we will see. The Seattle Mariners last year were 88 and 74. And this team, the starting rotation is pretty much all the way back. They have Luis Castillo, they have George Kirby, they have Logan Gilbert, they have Brian Wu, they have Bryce Miller, and they have Emerson Hancock as well, waiting in the wings to fill in for those guys. Really talented pitching staff. I'd say it's the best pitching staff top to bottom in the rotation. And their bullpen with Munoz at the back end and some really nice guys there is scary. But I can't pick them over the Texas teams. And they won 88 games last year, and they didn't beat either of the Texas teams. I think there might be some small regression out of Seattle. Julio Rodriguez is the player to watch. With the Mariners this season, he started off slow his first two major league seasons, but has still been a 25-25, 30-30 guy. Has the potential to be 40-40 if he can have a good first half. But the Mariners right now, it's hard to discern which pitcher is the best, but they're going to be really, really good. Last year, the Houston Astros won the division, sending the Texas Rangers, who I picked to make the playoffs, into the wild card round, and they went on their run and they won the World Series. I was higher on the Texas Rangers than the majority of the media last year. I still believe in them a lot. And that's why I think that the Texas Rangers are going to win the division over the Houston Astros this year, despite losing it ever so slightly last season. The Houston Astros did make some awesome additions. You love to see them going out and getting Josh Hader. But this team is at a crossroads, in my opinion. Jose Abreu, what are you going to get from him? Alex Bregman pushing towards free agency. Where's his head at with keeping himself healthy versus helping the team? Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker, two guys that Yordan's locked up. Kyle Tucker's not sure what his future is. They're two of the top 10 hitters overall in the game. But this pitching staff kind of scares me. Framber Valdez is fantastic. When Justin Verlander gets back, he will post. But you're relying on Christian Javier, who's looked good this spring, but was a big disappointment last season. Jose Urquidy, Lance McCullers won't be healthy. Like, who is going to pitch these innings? Hunter Brown. I don't believe in those guys enough for them to have mid to high 90s win potential. Are they going to win high 80s, low 90s and get second place in the division? Absolutely. But I don't think they have the ceiling that the Rangers have. And the Rangers, you're saying, oh, their rotation doesn't scare anybody either. Today, as of today, it does not scare anybody. You're right. It's Nathan Eovaldi, and it's a lot of unproven guys. Max Scherzer is going to be back mid-season and post. This team, once they get their TV contract settled, I think they're going to make a move at the trade deadline. I could see them being a suitor for Shane Bieber. I could see them being a suitor for a number of guys. But this Rangers team, they haven't been aggressive this offseason, which makes me think that they're going to be aggressive at the trade deadline because this lineup is unreal. Corey Seager is on his way back. I don't think he's going to miss a lot of time. He missed a lot of games last season, was second in MVP voting. Marcus Semien, if you guys haven't figured out, is one of my favorite players in baseball. And all he does is post. This is a guy who has missed no more than 3 games in a full season in the last 5 years. He's on the field, giving you well above league average production at the second base spot, leadoff hitter galore. And to add to this team that had all-star caliber bats like Adolis Garcia, Nathaniel Lowe, Jonah Heim, Josh Young, who will start the season hurt and come back, my rookie of the year pick from last year. They have the 2 front runners for American League Rookie of the Year in Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford, who has been announced to make the opening day lineup. This Rangers team can rake. And I am so excited for Rangers baseball this year, because a lot of times when a team wins the World Series, they kind of pack it in for a couple years and they're just like, okay, we've done enough. This team, this front office, Chris Young, they seem aggressive. They seem hungry. They seem like they want to get back to action. So this Rangers team, I think their floor is 88 wins, and I think their ceiling is 100. I think that they're going to be somewhere in that range. I think that Max Scherzer and whoever they add, guys like John Gray and Andrew Heaney, are going to get opportunities to post innings, and I think they can be very serviceable. So I like the Rangers this year. Shocker, but I like them to win the division, unlike last year when I picked them to just win a wild card spot. Here at the Show Shot Sports Podcast, we have to throw back down the third base line to this day in baseball history to keep the great stories and men and women in this baseball history alive. There wasn't a ton of American League related things here for March 23rd. However, there was a connection to Hugo, who I know is a avid listener of the show and will definitely be checking this out. On this day in baseball history, it is Al Lopez Day in Tampa, Florida. Happy Al Lopez Day. Al Lopez, El Senor, for those of you that don't know, is a Hall of Fame manager who was a very good catcher in his own right. And he was given Al Lopez Day on this date in 1970 in Tampa, Florida. Casey Stengel and many baseball legends were there to help honor Al Lopez, and he got a ton of gifts, including a rocking chair that Casey Stengel wanted to turn in and Al Lopez would not get out of. He was super comfortable that day. So Al Lopez, a guy who in the history of baseball, I think is not very much talked about, a guy who was a baseball lifer, gave so much, not just to the Florida baseball community, but to every team and organization he was a part of. Just a true baseball lifer that was honored on this day. Most of his accomplishments were in the American League for Cleveland and Chicago. So I wanted to highlight Al Lopez Day for my buddy Hugo and for this show. Wrapping things up here, before I get into the awards, I just wanted to go over the playoff teams that I have for these divisions. So right now, I have the Orioles winning the East, the Twins winning the Central, the Rangers winning the West. I have the Astros in the first wild card spot, the Rays in the second wild card spot, and then I currently have the Yankees in the third wild card spot with the Blue Jays and Mariners right on their tails. That being said, there are some awards, and part of the Rangers winning the division has me looking at them for a Rookie of the Year. And these two guys, they're different players. Langford is more of a five-tool threat, a guy with legitimate power and legitimate speed. But to me, I like to go more so with the bird in the hand, something that I've seen versus something that I haven't seen. And Evan Carter last season, ladies and gentlemen, a 306 batting average, 413 on base, and a 645 slug, 182 OPS plus in a 23 game sample size, 5 home runs, 3 stolen bases, 12 RBIs. He walked half as much as he struck out. The plate discipline that Evan Carter showed at the end of the regular season and in the playoff run for the Rangers was Juan Soto-esque. He has immense ability. He is incredibly mature for a guy of his stature and age. I just believe that Evan Carter is going to be the guy who wins the American League Rookie of the Year. The left fielder, I know that he's had some trouble hitting lefties, and that may cost him from being a guy who posts 150 plus games, but I believe in the plate discipline. I believe in the approach. I believe in the player. And I have Evan Carter being a guy that could go 25-25 for the Texas Rangers. And while Wyatt Langford's ceiling is higher, the floor between the two players, I am taking Evan Carter all day. Manager of the year in the American League is going to be a fun one. I do think that Stephen Vogt is going to get consideration if the Guardians remain in the wild card hunt. But I'm looking at the league, and Bruce Bochy should have won it last year, in my opinion. And I believe Bruce Bochy, with Corey Seager hurt, with the starting rotation where it currently is, if he can do it again, 90 plus wins with this. And finally, the Cy Young and the MVP. As we push 50 minutes yet again, I appreciate those of you that stuck in and listened. The Cy Young and MVP are kind of open now because Garrett Cole is going to miss significant time. He was the safe pick, and Shohei Ohtani was the safe MVP pick in the American League. He's no longer in it. The Cy Young Award, I know a lot of people are going with Corbin Burns. It doesn't have to go to a player on the best team anymore. And I don't think the Royals are going to be 106 loss bad, but I don't think they're going to be very good either. But Cole Reagans, every time he goes on the mound, is going to just dominate. I don't know how you hit that guy. And for that reason, if Cole Reagans pitches the whole season, he is my Cy Young pick. Cole Reagans, amazing stuff from the left side. Crazy velocity, crazy movement, and a team where he will stick out a lot more compared to the rest of that rotation. No offense to Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha and Brady Singer, than a lot of other pitchers will in the American League. And my MVP for the American League, it's not quite as sexy as Cole Reagans, but I do believe a contract year in New York City is special. We saw one a few years ago. Juan Soto hitting in that bandbox at Yankee Stadium will do enough to win MVP. 40 plus home runs, 120 plus RBIs with a 400 on base. He led the league in walks multiple times. He is an absolute hitting machine and will be your American League MVP in 2024. Appreciate each and every one of you for spending your Solo Shot Saturday or part of your week listening with me. For more baseball content, you can check me out on X at DomMana44. And I will be back next Solo Shot Saturday, recapping official opening day and the baseball that's been played so far, the rumors, the injuries, and everything else. We have baseball opening day less than a week away, people. It's super exciting. I can't wait to be listening to baseball all summer with y'all. See you in the next one. Peace.